Hello guys, this is Video Psych here again. You know what? I'm kind of thinking about I should probably put something back here so you guys don't just see everything back here. But anyway, before I do that, I'm going to make this video about how to handle rejection. And the way I've typically handled rejection in the past decade or so is I know it's definitely a way that a lot of people, especially guys, or people just in general, they don't handle the way they probably should lots of times, really. I mean, for instance, if a woman rejects a guy for sex or for a date, there are plenty of times I see them just act like, oh my God, I did something wrong, or oh my God, I should just kill myself. It's the end. I'm I'm not useful to the opposite sex. And in a way, that's kind of how I kind of would sometimes act when I was younger. But after I've been through a whole, school full of women, a Christian school, by the way, and yeah, I mean, after being rejected that many times, I mean, you actually kind of learn a lot from it. In fact, you actually learn a lot more from rejection than being non-rejected lots of times, really. And just one thing to kind of point out, I mean, just because you've been rejected by a few people or jobs or employers, whatever, like that seriously doesn't mean it's the end of the world. In fact, there are actually plenty of times that doesn't even mean that you've done anything wrong. I mean, sure, they might be doing what they do for a reason. They might be rejecting you for a reason sometimes, or even lots of times, but that doesn't always mean that you've done something wrong. For instance, just because a woman rejects you for a date or for sex doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. I mean, for one, they just might not be into guys, or two, maybe you just aren't very compatible, or three, maybe she's just not into you for whatever reason. Maybe she thinks you're not good looking. Who knows? Even if you are a good looking guy, sometimes some people won't think you're good looking. Just in general, sometimes people just aren't even into you. I mean, just like actually when I used to be in high school, and even after high school, there were actually some of the prettier women in high school that seemed to take some interest towards me, but I just wasn't into them. At least a couple that I can think of, I just wasn't into them, and so I just wasn't going to go out with them. It's not like they weren't pretty enough, but it's just like I've talked to them enough to the point where I just knew, we just weren't compatible, is all. And I didn't even think much wrong of them lots of times. I just didn't, that's it. We just really weren't that compatible. It didn't click. We didn't snap, we didn't click. And, naturally, we typically know when somebody just isn't right for us. It comes natural to us lots of times. Maybe on a rare occasion we might be wrong, but, it's not very often. We're actually human beings are very instinctive in that kind of way. Although, don't get me wrong, I've met some pretty dumb people in my life, to say the least. And as far as a job goes, I mean, there are actually some employers that I've met, they sometimes really do overthink the way that they, employ people sometimes. Like, sometimes these employers these days, they will seriously overthink the way a person is interviewing sometimes. I mean, there have been plenty of times I come into the interview, I'd answer their questions just fine and everything. I mean, my father's a politician, and he's taught me helped teach me how to be at an interview with other politicians. And even then, sometimes I don't get the job. I mean, sometimes it just happens. It Sometimes you didn't even say anything wrong, but sometimes an employer will come up with something very overcomplicated, and sometimes in a way that something that doesn't even make any sense. And sometimes I think that they're coming up with excuses, but I generally just think that they just overthink it sometimes. They seriously do. Of why they decide not to hire you. They seriously do overthink things sometimes. But anyway, moving on. And how do you handle that kind of rejection? Well, I mean, you just leave them to it. I mean, if a woman or a man or whatever you're into, I mean, if they don't want to go off you, just leave them to it. I mean, just not too long ago, actually, like a week ago, there was a guy actually I know at work. He was trying to get with her, quote unquote, and of course, she rejected him. And then he started getting kind of creepy, and he started trying to force her to be with her, like during work hours. And I was talking to the guy that told me about this, and I just said, when are a lot of guys just going to learn, and people in general, when are they going to learn to just leave people to it? If somebody doesn't want to go out with you, well, good riddance. I mean, why would you want to go out with somebody that doesn't want to go out with you? I mean, it would be shitty to be with somebody that doesn't want to be with you. I mean, if you've ever experienced that, it really is shitty. I'd rather go out with somebody that wants to go out with me. I mean, part of the reason is so that I don't have to fear for my life every time I go to sleep at night. And I think I get what I mean by that. Like, just go out with somebody that generally likes you and that you can work with when it comes to a relationship. And yet, also, don't get into relationships just for sex. I've already tried that before, and it does not end well. As far as a relationship goes, just go out with somebody that you like. Let me tell you. You don't want to deal with somebody you don't like during a relationship. It's pretty bad. Especially when they're dumb. Oh yeah, and I was also going to mention, when you are trying to pick up women, don't be this guy. Don't be this guy. Mr. James Bond's, Mr. makes a cheesy line and gets the girl anyway. I mean, plus the guy's very sexist. I mean, at least the character. I mean, yeah, don't be James Bond, because that's just way too unrealistic, and it doesn't work. It never ever works, ever. But yeah, just like I said before, doors always open and close. You're never going to run out of opportunities. This might be a small world, but the world of opportunity is very large. I mean, just because a full school full of women pretty much rejected me mostly doesn't mean I can't go to another school and be popular. In fact, that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, that school full of women that mostly rejected me, but then I go back to the old high school that I used to be at, and I was popular. People generally liked me, and I was popular. And then I noticed women tended to like me more as well from that school, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think you get my point at this point. Like, yeah, doors always open and close. They always open and close. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world because the door closes. You can just find another one to open, let me tell you. But anyway, I think that's enough of the video. I've kind of made my point. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.